Hey everyone, Kyle Mike here from MLive.com. Joined by Justin Rogers. Lions are facing some very important organizational decisions as they move forward into the offseason. Justin, starting with the GM search, the new GM will, of course, decide the fate of Jim Caldwell, and then from there are several prominent players and people in the organization they'll have to look at, including Calvin Johnson.
None bigger.
And it's an interesting discussion to have. It's kind of like talking about, should the Lions cut Barry Sanders? I mean, he's meant just as much to the organization. Maybe not quite as singular of a player as what Barry was, but certainly a Hall of Fame talent. Will be remembered forever around here. But $24 million price tag for next year. That's his cap hit on the books until 2019. And production not necessarily commensurate with that kind of pay. Near 1,000 yards this year, but more of a role player, more of a possession receiver. So, Justin, what do you think the Lions should do or will do going forward, considering, Johnson's obviously a tremendous player, but the cap hit is also tremendous?
Possession receiver is not something a lot of people are throwing around, but it's a completely appropriate term. The big plays are down. Yeah, no, it's good wording. Hasn't had only one 100-yard game this year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're coming off of a game where he had just one reception for 16 yards, came late, was largely shut down by the opposing defense, and yeah, that's a salary you can't justify any longer. $24 million is too much, and mind you, 13 of that is dead money, but still, you're talking about $13 million in savings to let Calvin Johnson go, and that's a really tough decision for any organization. But I think for him to stick here, it's going to be something where they're going to need to find a way to reduce that.
Yeah, I'm asked a lot what I think is going to happen with Calvin, and obviously no one has any clue because the man who's going to make that decision hasn't even been hired yet. But if my gut tells me I think he'll be back at some point next year under some circumstance, likely with a reworked contract, whether it's an outright pay cut or whether it's a restructured contract. I have no idea, but I think he'll be back. But it's a discussion that you have to have because his production is down and the impact he has on a game is down, and that's undeniable. And I'm not sure if it's because of the scheme fit, with Joe Lombardi and then the transition this year, if it's just a matter of, the Lions changing the play calls or whatever, or if it's an actual physical diminishment with age and injury, of course, and so forth over the past couple of years. I'm not sure what it is, but certainly Calvin is not Calvin anymore, and you can't then pay him Calvin money at that kind of production level. I think the new GM has to ascertain, is this a physical thing? If it is, maybe you move on. Or if it's a schematic thing, you got to change the scheme. You got to figure out and put guys in place who can can get Calvin back to that level where maybe the production is commensurate with what he's making.
It's funny. For years, there was an over-reliance of Calvin Johnson in this offense, and they were looking for those complementary weapons, and now they have them. They have guys like Golden Tate and Theo Riddick who really do stress a defense, force either the coverage to roll to them or to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually been part of the reason Johnson's production has dipped, is now the ball is being spread around more to valuable targets. I don't know Riddick's reception numbers off the top of my head, but
a lot.
They're both trending toward 60 receptions for the year, if not more. Last time I checked,
more for Riddick. Yeah.
Tate, was somewhere in the ballpark of 10th or 15th in targets and receptions. So I don't know if they need more weapons, but scheme-wise, I definitely think they need to find ways to scheme more. I think we all remember the quick slant to Calvin was the unstoppable go-to passing play in the NFL. How often do you see that anymore? It's just I asked Calvin about it today. He said it's still in the playbook, but he didn't say much more beyond that. I'd like to see what he can do with whoever the next offensive coordinator may be. Maybe the talents are being poorly utilized, as hard as that is to imagine.
Well, Calvin's a good sport. He's never one to rock the boat. Never.
For sure.
I was at the game on Sunday, and after Golden Tate's touchdown catch in the third quarter, at that point, Calvin had just a handful of targets, 0 catches, and his body language was that of a player who had 20 catches at that point. The touchdown was made, and he goes around slapping hands and fist bumping every player on the field, and he goes along the sideline and starts slapping hands with everyone and hitting the butts and everything, as if he had 20 catches. And that's the player Calvin is. He's never one to grumble. He's a team player through and through. The stuff you hear about this guy is for real. But at the end of the day, he does make the most money any receiver has ever made, and now he is no longer a receiver worthy of that kind of money. Those are the decisions the Lions will have to make. They are hard decisions because he's meant so much to this club and this city, but it's something the Lions and the new GM will have to face.
Yeah, those points you hit on are why Calvin is more valuable than just his production. He's a marketable player. He gets in no trouble off the field. He's an exceptional leader from a work ethic standpoint. I think he's a great teammate, but this is a production-based league, and the teams that hold on to the nice guys or the guys that don't just produce are losing organizations. You look at organizations like the Patriots and the Steelers; they're ruthless. They cut guys. There's no sentimental value in those decisions. It's purely production-based business, and I think if the Lions want to get there, they have to snap that sentimental value to, and listen, nobody has meant more to this organization since Barry than Calvin Johnson, but if they're not confident that he can get back to that Megatron level production, and he's not willing to take a pay cut, which there's a reasonable shot that he wouldn't. There's no reason, it's impossible for us to demand somebody takes a pay cut. That's the contract they earned, but they had to be prepared to move on.
That's what we got for today. He's Justin. I'm Kyle. We're on Live. Keep it right here.